comes up to him, and yeah, you're right. He offers him $5,000 if he will kill him.
Yeah.
And it's got a little bit of that double indemnity quality of he's doing it a little bit for the business and for the
Yeah.
insurance money, et
Also,
cetera, et cetera.
I will mention, I love the way that they shoot George throughout this film. Orson Welles always has these really weird angled close-ups, and George
Yes,
has this...
and he's so sweaty and so
he
crazy.
has this delivery that's very chaotic and sporadic, and the way that he even delivers lines, he like elongates words oddly, and there's just something so off-putting about his character and the way that Orson films him. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. I it's later on somewhere in my notes, but I have to find that exact line that he says where he says something while they're driving in the car that I remember just being like, no one would say something like that in the way that he said it.
There's such a weird close-up of his face while he's doing it too. It's very off-putting.
Yeah. Well, and I did know right away that this whole idea of him being swept up in this sort of like romantic dream of running away with the beautiful blonde woman and saving her from the sort of like criminals that she has found herself trapped within or indebted to in some capacity, and he views himself as like a traditional hero who's gonna get the woman out of that, and he's in love with her. And so when we get into this plot of they find out that he's killed someone, and he says I killed someone in the war. I didn't like straight up, murder someone, but he says, look, would you kill me for money? And he views that as, well, this guy's going to commit suicide anyway.
Right.
So I technically I could, and then I could use that money, and me and, Elsa could, get out of here. And, so it's interspersed scenes of this business transaction, this criminal business transaction, and then the romantic qualities are, they're not quite entangled, but he's connecting them together personally because he wants to use that money to sort of like escape with her.
Right.
So all of a sudden, we'll have this scene of, a very blatant business transaction of death, and then her, being like, singing her song about, don't hold me, but if you hold me, don't take your arms away. Mm-hmm. And she talks about too, the idea of, human nature being eternal, and that those who love passionately are cured of love by the end. And she's starting to say these sort of like very poetic romantic conversations that they're having with each other, essentially about the big philosophical questions of love and life and all these things. And the first hint that something is just too good to be true really kind of hits during that big picnic scene where they has, because she says, I want to have a picnic. And next thing they know, they have grounded the boat, and there's like torches and like a giant tribe party that gets like planned within like an hour, and it's this giant beautiful location work. I'm assuming that's what they shot in sort of Acapulco and stuff like that. And at this point too, he realizes that an investigator has been brought in to watch the wife. Presumably because, the husband might think that, there's something going on with her and the boat boy. And again, because the husband is also being like weirdly pursuing him as an employee, despite clearly just for the wife. But, he's not sure how much of this is like a planned trap and how much he's walking into it. You can never really tell because, again, so even though the sequences are traditional, sometimes the actors are delivering them funny. Like the Everett Sloane as Arthur Bannister, the disabled lawyer, he will just like straight up just emphasize like these weird things about like, why don't you want to work for me, Sonny? Are you independently wealthy? And he says, I'm independent. And then he says, of money? And, like, so there's great little conversations that they have too. And one of my favorite scenes in the film is during this picnic scene where Orson Welles relates the story on the sea that he has while he's looking at Grisby, he's looking at Bannister, he's looking at Elsa. They're all sitting together, and each one of them, as we find out later in the film, each one of them is plotting something. And each one of them is planning on using, in some capacity, Orson Welles' character, Michael O'Hara, to reach the end of their plot, which involves a lot of double-crossing and murder and stuff, and we'll get into that when we get into the big surrealist finale about what exactly it is that happened there.
Yeah.
But he gives this monologue where he was out on the ocean that he said was so darkened with blood it was black, and the sun was fading away over the lip of the sky, and they decided that they were going to do some idle shark fishing. And there were so many sharks, it was like the sea was made of sharks, and that there was no water at all, and that each shark caught a piece of the scent and the stain, because one of them was caught in one of the hooks and started bleeding everywhere. And then there was a lust for murder in the air, the smell of death reeking out of the sea. I never saw anything worse until this picnic. And you're thinking, this picnic is fucking beautiful. What are you talking about? And then he clarifies, and there wasn't one of those sharks that survived in that whole crazy pack. They all basically cannibalized each other to death. And you realize that he was actually talking about the three of them, and that this very sort of poetic image of sharks literally tearing each other to shreds for no reason. That is what he feels like this situation is. Yeah. And despite that, he keeps walking into it. He's like, there's a chance. She's so beautiful. She's so incredible. And she's, this beautiful image of this woman is so overpowering and entrancing that it overpowers his own instinct that she is a fucking shark.
Do you think that there's something because Michael's character is clearly kind of very naive, and it's odd though, because like the naivety comes from it's not necessarily like he's not aware.